Welcome back to the third part of Different Flags, Same Music. Bass drum and cymbals is something that we might think that there's not so much difference, but actually bass drum was the first things that I play in Vienna, and it was tricky. It's a different concept of sound, it's different skin, it's a goat skin, not calf or plastic, different mallets. And one thing that Joachim maybe forgot to mention is this bass drum stand, or at least in the Volksoper, they had this bass drum stand that they made themselves. It was a piece of wood, like a box of wood, like this. Then here was flat, and here was like cut in a semicircle, and they put the bass drum on top of that. I think goes with the idea of being as much as possible in contact with the stage. Another topic was interesting about these interviews is the concept of being an artist or an actor on stage. We are musicians, we work with sound, but we cannot forget that people see us and many people listen with their eyes. Thank you for watching and enjoy the interviews.
What about bass drum? What do you guys use for and what
We
mallets?
we just about a year after I started, we bought a new bass drum, and it's a Reamer bass drum. And Andy Reamer, he's the principal percussionist in Pittsburgh Symphony, and he has a company called Drummer Service that makes like rudimental snare drums, and he makes really fantastic bass drums and snare drum sticks. And so that's kind of been the standard for orchestras in the US, the Reamer bass drum with calf heads on both sides. I think ours is 36 inch by 20 inch deep. And I make my own mallets for bass drum. I think I find that a lot of the mallets that are kind of commercially available are really small for that size of a drum. It makes it so that you can kind of move the mallets quickly, but I don't think you get the deep sound that you can really get out of a bass drum. So I actually they're kind of copies of mallets that Alan Abel, the Philadelphia Orchestra, he kind of developed, I guess. But a large chrome handle that's like a pretty heavy metal with a masking tape core, and covered with however many layers of felt you need. But that heavy mallet really gets that deep sound in the bass drum. And I've actually made the same kind of things for like tam beaters too. Like just any kind of big instrument, I think, needs a really heavy mallet too. And like I said, I think what's available is not large enough for those instruments. Not heavy enough. Yeah.
Have you ever guys experiment with deeper bass drums? Because I don't know if you've seen it. I mean, in Europe they are a bit deeper, the bass drums.
Yeah. I really haven't. I think when I was at Kohlberg, I remember seeing that like a smaller diameter drum but deeper. I'd be curious to have one of those and to see how they compare. And I'm sure there's depending on the repertoire, one drum we would like better than the other.
In terms of playing, what do you do with the resonance heads? Do you muffle it? Is something for you that's important, or just let it vibrate?
Yeah, resonant head, I generally let it vibrate unless it's like a very like the whole orchestra, it's complete silence. But generally I let it resonate. And the one thing that I personally do for bass drum playing is I actually tune it to a specific pitch. Depending on the piece, I think it can make a big difference. And there's only certain pitches that work. Like the range on our drum is anywhere from like an A flat to a D flat, maybe somewhere in there. That the pitch actually sounds good and it doesn't sound pitchy. If it gets too high, bass drums can sound pitchy. But somewhere in that range, you get a really nice quality sound, and you get a specific pitch. So if I'm playing something like, the opening to Also Sprach Zarathustra, where double bass, contrabassoon, they're playing a pedal C, and the bass drum is playing with it, and if the bass drum is not tuned to a C, it doesn't have the same effect. And so I make sure, like, if I'm playing that piece, I tune that bass drum to a C, and it really sets the mood for the whole piece.
Mm-hmm. Great. What about cymbals? What is your take, or what do you guys use? What have you experimented?
Sure. I mean, I play a lot of Zildjian cymbals. I really find they have a lot of they have the best variety of sounds. I think they make a lot of different models. They can get something that's really bright, something that's really dark, something that's splashy, and I've been able to find any kind of sound that I want with the Zildjian cymbals. So I mean, my general kind of what I generally reach for is kind of a medium weight, what they would call a Constantinople cymbal. That's kind of my 18-inch, probably a general cymbal. Depending on the music, something thicker, something thinner, something bigger.
Yeah.
But then again, I've also played on some, like Pittsburgh had several pairs of the old Zildjian cymbals, the old Ks, and there's just nothing like those cymbals either. I don't know what they've changed their formula, or just the metal has had that much time to cure or something. But yeah, that's another old instrument that's prized that's really valuable. So
I understand. And what about technique? I mean, do you take, for example, importance to this after resonance of the cymbal? There is different theories, like going high.
Yeah.
All these different things.
I mean, I've never really, I'm not really familiar with those kind of techniques, I guess. I mean, there's so many variables about, how the cymbals go together. You have your angle, you have your offset, your velocity, your distance, and it's so hard to get all those variables together at the same time to make consistent crashes. So I try to make my motion as simple as possible, which is really just like that little monkey would plays the cymbals like that. That's kind of my technique for cymbals, just kind of go in and out, and then I can, I'm making sure that I have all of those variables set for each crash that I make, and try to get it as consistent as possible. As far as the sound after, doing something with the cymbals after, I did have, when I was in Chicago, I had a conductor who was really adamant about, like, show the audience the cymbals after you make the crash. He was like, he was really, and I, making sure I pleased the conductor. I did that, and I started working that into my general motion.
Okay.
And so that kind of just I started naturally doing that. And then I went and played. I was playing extra Pittsburgh Symphony and playing cymbals, and John Soroka was principal at the time, and he took me aside after at the break of rehearsal and said, like, he said, what you're doing with showing the cymbals to the orchestra, to the audience, that's not something that we do here. And so I shut that down right away.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But now that you are in the orchestra and you have your voice, I mean, you have tried both. What is your personal? I mean, when nobody says anything and the conductor doesn't say, what do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think I just try to put the cymbals together as easy as I can, and let them ring on their own. I don't do anything with facing them any certain direction or anything.
Okay, understand. What about this Mahler to doppel or try?
Oh, sure.
Three cymbals at the same time when sometimes it's written. I mean, he wrote it, but sometimes
sure. Yeah, I mean, we'll do. I mean, if we have the players on stage and people are just sitting around for like a big moment, we'll just get an extra pair of cymbals and say, hey, just double me on this spot. I think orchestras in the US are kind of known for their volume in playing, and so that's something that and it's also a little bit of theater too, like seeing two players do it, it's a little more exciting than just one, and it's a little fuller sound. And so yeah, if we have time and we have the players to do it, we might have somebody else join us.
So it is a response that you think that the instruments, I mean, especially brass, they have with the time become so louder and louder that one cymbal is sometimes in
right, yeah,
balance, not enough.
Yeah, or I might have to get a bigger cymbal. Like sometimes what I've found with cymbals is there's a maximum volume for each cymbal, and if you try to muscle it out and play harder, you get a bad sound, or it doesn't come out right. So I just have to kind of swing maybe 80% of my of a full crash to get my biggest sound. And if that's not big enough, then I just have to pick up a bigger cymbal.
Mm-hmm. And what you say also, I mean, the show is also important. I mean, people are there to listen, but they also are looking.
Sure.
And I
think
absolutely, it's also important just to see it also. It's
a
different perception.
I remember there was one piece I played in Fort Wayne, and the only thing, I was like a 40-minute symphony. I don't remember what it was, but there was one cymbal note at the very end. It wasn't a Bruckner, but it was at the very end of the piece, and it was a suspended cymbal note. And I sat on stage the whole time, and 5 minutes before I had to play, I slowly got up, I picked up the cymbal, and I just waited, I had a stick in my hand and waited, and then made it kind of make a big show of it. If I have the time to do that, to really take my time and make a big deal of the note, then I will.
Yeah, I think it's also important. I mean, we are musicians, we work with music, but we are also artists that there are people are looking to us the whole
time. Yeah.
You just bring the point, suspended cymbals. What do you do usually? What have you seen? How do you hold it? Do you were saying, do you hold it with your hand? This
if I have time and I don't need to play too many rolls, like if I have single notes with a stick, I'll put a strap on the cymbal and hold it. Otherwise I'll hang it from a gooseneck stand, and play with suspended cymbal mallets, and sometimes two different cymbals at the same time, just to kind of mix kind of get the right kind of color.
Okay, and this is when you don't have the time to hold it, do you go for the goose stand or you go for normal drum set stands?
Yeah, gooseneck stand. I think those resonate very well. When you can really hear the difference if you play a cymbal and you put it on a drum set cymbal stand, how it kind of, the sound's a little bit muffled or doesn't quite resonate as much as it does on a gooseneck stand when it's really free to rotate.
Mm-hmm. Ein bisschen über große Trommel. Was für Instrumente hat ihr, Instrumentenschlägel, und was ist für dich diesen Resonanzfällen? Ist das für dich wichtig? Also machst du ein bisschen mit der anderen Hand immer so ein bisschen dampfen oder lass es einfach klingen lassen?
Also wir verwenden im Orchester die Hardcore-große Trommel. Da haben wir 3 verschiedene Größen bei uns im Orchester und haben aber auch noch ein paar alte Lifima große Trommeln bei uns stehen. Und die Hardcore große Trommel ist ja ein Nachbau von einer großen Trommel von den Berliner Philharmonikern. Und da wurde sie dann zum ersten Mal, also Hardcore ist ja auch eine Firma aus Berlin, und das wurde dann bei uns einfach so mit übernommen. Und ja, von der Spielart würde ich sagen, dass ich eigentlich das Resonanzfell nie wegdämpfe, außer es ist eine Stelle, wo danach eine Generalpause ist. Dann versuche ich auch den Klang vom Resonanzfell mit wegzunehmen, also schnell nach Abschlag beide Seiten zu dämpfen. Aber eigentlich meistens wird nur das Schlagfell gedämpft bei uns.
Okay. Und weißt du die Größen von diesen Trommeln, also von Tiefe und von dem ungefähr? Nein, das ist nicht drin, genau.
Ungefähr, da kann ich jetzt groß schätzen. Keine Ahnung, weiß nicht.
Also, okay.
Aber wir haben auf jeden Fall 3 verschiedene große Instrumente und wir nehmen immer diese mittlere her.
Michi, von Becken, kannst du ein bisschen von Becken erzählen? Was für Instrumente, welche große kommen, also ihr habt sicher verschiedene Becken, aber was kommt am meisten? Und genau, fangen wir damit, mit diesen
Ja.
großen Uninstrumente.
Also wir haben natürlich das auch wieder geschuldet von unserem großen Saal. Wir spielen eigentlich meistens 20 Zoll Becken und aufwärts. Also wir haben ein 20 Zoll Spitzikino-Paar, Spitzikino-Becken auf der Bühne meistens. Das nehmen wir eigentlich fast immer her für große Symphonien und so. Und ein 22 Zoll Spitzikino-Becken. Das ist ein Beckenhersteller aus Italien und der macht relativ schwere Becken. Und das ist auch wieder ein Grund, ist der Saal dafür, weil eben zum Beispiel diese Meindelbecken, die jetzt auch fast jedes Orchester spielt, die klingen bei uns im Saal, die klingen sehr elegant und sehr fein, aber sind nicht so durchsetzungsstark wie jetzt zum Beispiel dicke Silchenbecken oder eben unsere Spitzikino-Becken. Deswegen haben wir immer eher schwerere Becken im Einsatz.
Mhm. Mhm. Und von der Spielart, also gibst du persönlich so wichtige Gründe zu diesen Bewegungen nach dem Klang? Was kommt nach dem Klang? Ist es für dich wichtig? Oder?
Ja, also das ist auch wieder eine Philosophie und jeder macht es ein bisschen anders.
Mhm.
Und ich denke mir, ich mache die Becken, wenn ich einen großen Schlag habe, mache ich die Becken auf zum Publikum, weil der Klang dann nach draußen ins Publikum geht, meiner Philosophie mäßig. Deswegen, wenn ein großer Schlag kommt, hole ich aus und gehe nach außen auf.
Okay.
In Stuttgart habe ich es so gelernt, oder wurde es mir so, als ich Praktikant war, dass ich die Becken quasi wie ein Hängebecken nach dem Klang so halten soll. Das Ausschwingen wie ein Hängebecken. Aber ich habe das mal ausprobiert und der Klang, der geht schon von der Innenseite, strahlt der ab. Deswegen habe ich dann für mich das so quasi weiterentwickelt, dass man den Klang nach draußen aufmacht, also die Becken nach außen öffnet.
Okay, so das ist eine Philosophie und kommt auch zusammen, denke ich, wenn das ist auch, ich glaube, vor dem Publikum ist es extrem schön, das zu sehen, wenn es eine
Ja,
große
glaube ich
Punkt
auch.
kommt.
Es ist ja bei uns auch mit unser Job, dass das, was wir machen, erstens gut klingt und zweitens auch nicht blöd aussieht. Das ist auch ein wichtiger Punkt von unserem Geschäft, weil wir ja viel weniger spielen jetzt wie ein Streicher oder Bläser. Deswegen sind diese wenigen Momente, wo wir dann aufstehen und unsere Aktion ausführen, das ist auch ein bisschen choreografiert natürlich. Also es ist schon überlegt und man überlegt sich auch, also zum Beispiel bei Bruckner 7 oder so, wo der eine Schlag ist, man überlegt sich schon, wann stehe ich auf, wie nehme ich die Becken in die Hand, wie stehe ich dann da. Also man choreografiert auch ein bisschen seine Stellen durch.
Mhm.
Und man muss natürlich, also ich übe auch sehr viel vom Spiegel oder mache auch so Schläge mal vom Spiegel, einfach um zu sehen, wie wirkt das, was ich mache.
Mhm.
Das würde ich auch jedem empfehlen, der übt oder einfach mal sich aufnehmen per Kamera oder vom Spiegel üben, damit man einfach auch sieht, wie wirkt das jetzt komisch oder ist das irgendwie gehemmt oder ist es überzeugend, was ich mache, weil es ist auch fürs Probespiel generell auch wichtig, dass man überzeugt ist oder überzeugt rüberkommt von dem, was man macht.
Also wir sind auch so, alle diesen, wir sind quasi Schauspieler auch auf der Bühne, weil zum Beispiel, ich kenne meine Eltern gehen zum Konzert ganz oft und die Publikum merkt, wenn jemand aufsteht. Also sofort.
Genau.
Also,
ja, das ist ein Grund, warum wir zum Beispiel, also Tambourin würde ich immer im Stehen spielen, weil das einfach eine Aktion ist. Das wirkt ganz anders, wie wenn man im Sitzen spielt. Oder auch Kastagnetten oder Triangel. Wenn man einzelne Schläge hat, dann ist das einfach eine Aktion oder einfach für das Publikum ein Blickfang. Wenn man sieht, oh, jetzt steht er auf, jetzt passiert gleich was. Das ist ein erhebt die Spannung einfach.
wir kommen gleich zu Accessories. Halt den Gedanken. Wir sind jetzt bei Becken und wir reden über diesen großen Bewegung. Was ist deine Meinung oder deine Sektion von der München Philharmoniker Meinung über diesen Doppel- oder Dreifachbecken bei Mahler-Sinfonien oder Strauss-Sinfonie oder diesen großen Werken, wenn nicht geschrieben ist?
Bei uns im Orchester spielen wir meistens immer so, wie es da steht. Also wenn jetzt der Beckenspieler spielt seine Stimme und dann wird eigentlich sehr selten, dass passiert ist, dass wir die Stelle verdoppeln oder verdreifachen. Außer der Dirigent wünscht sich das natürlich. Und es ist auch so, dass natürlich, wenn jetzt bei Maler 8 zum Beispiel, da steht mehrfach besetzt oder mehr Becken, dann ist es schon so, dass der Hauptimpuls von dem einen Hauptbeckenspieler geschehen und man richtet sich dann nach diesem Beckenspieler. Also ich würde auch nicht sagen, dass es dann so viel lauter oder so viel voluminöser klingt, wie wenn das nur ein Spieler macht. Weil man eben seine Bewegung mit diesem Spieler koordiniert und eben, das ist wie beim Bolero, wo die zweite Trommel einsetzt. Man wird als zweiter Trommler nie lauter spielen wie der erste Trommler. Und so ist bei mehrfach besetzten Becken eigentlich auch, dass man sich nach dem Hauptbeckenspieler richtet. Natürlich klingt es dann ein bisschen voluminöser, wenn 3 Beckenspieler die Becken zusammenschlagen, aber wir machen das eigentlich nur, wenn es in den Noten steht oder der Dirigent wünscht sich das.
Okay, verstehe. Über Hängebecken, was verwendet ihr für Ständer? So normale Drumset-Ständer oder diesen Ständer, dieses so? Oder spielt man das auf die Hand? Wie macht ihr das?
Also natürlich, wenn man jetzt wieder diesen choreografischen Effekt nimmt, finde ich am schönsten, wenn man das Paarbecken in die eine Hand nimmt und mit dem Schlägel auf das Paarbecken schlägt und dann das Paarbecken danach frei schwingen lässt, wie ein Hängebecken oder wie ein Crashbecken beim Drumset. Und vielleicht noch kurz zurückzugreifen zum Tamtam, wo ich vorher mit den Schlägeln gesprochen habe. Das ist beim Hängebecken auch so. Es gibt Pianissimo-Schläge, wo man dann einen weichen Schlägel hernimmt, wo man sich dann bei der Aufnahme wieder denkt, spielt der eigentlich gerade oder hat er gespielt? Deswegen nehmen wir auch fürs Hängebecken immer einen Schlägel mit einem harten Kern oder einen Lederschlägel, dass eben der Klang von der Becken auch im Leisen immer noch zu hören ist oder gut perkussiv artikuliert ist. Und jetzt nochmal zu der Ständerfrage. Wir haben, wie die meisten Orchester, die Kohlberg-Ständer und verwenden auch für Hängebecken eigentlich immer die Kohlberg-Ständer. Aber nicht diese, wo du meinst mit der Gabel, sondern die einfachen.
Next topic will be bass drum. This is, I don't know if this is, maybe there is a difference. What are for mallets and instruments that you guys use in the orchestra? And I thought about this concept as like maybe the resonance head. Is there play for you? Is there is importance, or you just let it vibrate by itself?
I think that there are more differences actually. As I watched it in other orchestras, but I think that especially bass drum playing is really different than, for example, in Germany or other countries. And I think in Vienna it came out of this tradition of goatskin playing, because the bass drum, most of the time we play it also with goatskin, and this matches more the timpani playing in Vienna, which is really also different than playing on calfskin in Germany, for example. And this goatskin playing affects also the mallets. That's what's the reason why we're using harder mallets and smaller mallets in Vienna for the bass drums, and that we're trying to give the bass drum a more resonant or tone sound with more tone than this dry, more, I would say, drum set bass drum effect, which we have in the middle of the bass drum. So this kind of bass drum playing is more common to timpani playing, I think. So I once, my teacher told me that bass drum, I should think playing a bass drum in an opera, for example, with the timpani player together, it's like the biggest and the deepest timpani I add to the timpani thing. And this is a really different kind of thinking or a concept of sound than thinking a bass drum of a drum set bass drum, which I sometimes hear in other orchestras. This is, I'm not sure if this is the concept, but this is really different in playing position of the head, if it's played really in the middle or more at the edge. And it's also about the mallets and the skin, of course, and also the size of the corpus or of the bass drum as well. So we normally use more small sized bass drum and not so deep ones. Yes, and we try to give it more tone, which is also the reason why we don't dampen the resonant head so much.
Ah, okay. You just let it vibrate. Okay.
Most of the time, yes.
Okay. And about cymbals, most of people probably seen the Vienna Philharmonic concerts. This is the most that people see from Austria tradition on TV. And I always see these small cymbals. Is this the tradition, or do you guys have different sizes in the orchestra? Could you talk a bit about this?
Yes, so in basic, I think we can say that this is that this goes in the direction of the sound concept we have in Vienna. But I know that they are using for the New Year's concert also special cymbals. They are not using them all the time. So they having, I think, a big range of cymbals. And we also do in the orchestra having a big range of cymbals. But in the moment, it goes in the direction of thicker cymbals and small, I think in international compare, smaller cymbals. So we are never playing bigger ones than 19th or maximum 20-inch cymbals. And the smallest one I play is a 16-inch or 15-inch, actually, I think so. And all of these cymbals having a darker approach, and they are really thick in their sound, in their how they are built. So we are not used to this sound of very thin cymbals, and we don't use them in the orchestra actually. So the sound of the cymbal has to be really clear, but it has to match the whole sound of the orchestra, which is the reason why we use these dark cymbals, because we think of not killing the orchestra with a really bright and high sound, getting the sound more compact and more into the orchestra sound. This is the reason why we use these cymbals. But sorry, I just lose my
no problem.
But I saw that this cymbal playing, for example, is a good example that I learned, or I grew up in my studies and living in Vienna with this certain concept of sound, because I always hear this orchestra, I always hear these instruments, and I always heard these cymbals. And that's the reason why we are using that also, because probably we never heard different cymbals, but we are used to this sound. And yes, so this is the reason why
Okay, and about playing the cymbals, I mean, you were talking about a bit of like this concept of playing inside the orchestra, not just being like the cherry of the cake, just like
Yeah.
trying to mix with the sound. What does it help to do this? I mean, about the techniques when you crash the cymbals, do you what's your take about the resonance after the cymbal? Do you believe, I mean, there is tons of theories like to leave them
Yes,
high, to leave them hanging like this, or what
I
do you
know.
think?
Yes. So I think that I didn't try all these techniques in the orchestra, but I think that it can be really interesting to use these effects for special strokes. But in general, when we play a lot of cymbal during a piece in the orchestra, we try this idea of matching the sound of the orchestra, and this is the reason why I tried while playing cymbals. I play it from in a vertical movement normally, is to never really open up the cymbals really wide. So
Okay.
it also helps me to keep this more darker orchestra friendly sound, to keep the cymbals more in my playing position in front of the body and not making a lot of movement or a lot of showing the cymbals to the audience. This helps my idea of cymbal sound most of the time.
Okay. And about suspense cymbals, do you guys have something special in Vienna that I would like you to talk about? Could you tell us about this suspension?
Yes, I mean, I don't know if this is so special. We try to use every time suspended cymbal played it in the hand, holding it in the hand. So we normally use the Adue cymbals we are using, and then just taking one of the Adue cymbals and playing it with a stick. And this is also the same idea behind as with the chair, that if you have the cymbal in your hand, then it connects through your body and through your skeleton. Is it the right word? I think.
Yeah.
Through the body to the resonant hall, and this is the reason why we play it in hand. And then we have this special stand, which is not a normal drum set cymbal stand. It's like a
The goose stand. Yeah, I seen it
yes,
in America also. This goose.
yes, I think a lot of orchestra have these stands also. So
And
yeah.
and last thing about cymbals, what is your take about? There's many times that people double or triple the cymbal crash by Mahler symphonies. Do you do that, and why?
When it's not written,
When it's
they
not written.
yeah, we don't do that normally when it's not written, because I trust the composer most of the time that he had a good thought about it or an idea why to write it. And Mahler has some passages in his symphony where he really wrote 3 cymbal players or 2 cymbal players. But if he's not written that, I think he knew why. And I think he had an idea of how that should sound in general at the end. And this is the approach we have at the moment, that we trust the composer what he wrote and play it in that way.
Okay. I remember, I have to say, I still remember seeing the orchestra doing Mahler 8, I think it was. We were playing
Yes.
cymbals and just doing magic. I still remember this concert, just doing magic with these things.
Thank you.
There were some things that you did. They were not really written, but I think you with the conductor, you told me that you work really closely. Do you remember anything? Could you talk a bit about that?
Yes, I mean, this is like nothing, and actually not a Viennese tradition thing, that there are these really pianissimo strokes at Mahler 8, and we normally would play it like normal Adue strokes, and I think that Mahler liked it that way, or he wrote it that way actually, but our conductor wanted it to make it this slice movement in the cymbals. You know it, there are really different techniques, and I tried really different techniques, like with the edge and the other edge, and so, but at the end we found a really nice sound, I think so. And I really like this sound and this technique. Actually, it's not so common to our playing style, but I really liked it, and it was really nice.
It's nice, different version of the symphony.
Yes, different version. And if a conductor comes with this idea and he wants to have it, so we try to match his ideas. So
yeah, I heard comments, people saying, yeah, the Joachim is the ninja there who's sneaking with the cymbals.
yeah, this was really fun. Yeah.